At 3:31 a.m. on a quiet Sunday morning in Indianapolis, 30-year-old Chanti Dixon requested an Uber to take her home from work. The driver assigned to her was 29-year-old Francisco Valadez. Within hours, Chanti would be reported missing. By the following afternoon, her body would be discovered near a wooded area, shot and abandoned. The last person she was seen with was her driver. She did everything according to protocol, ordered through the app, waited in a public area, and entered a registered vehicle. Yet, her ride became a one-way trip.
Now an Uber driver is arrested for the murder of 30-year-old Chanti Dixon, who was missing this weekend. The driver confessed to killing Dixon. ITV's got Send all pieces together what happened.
This is where Chanti Dixon's body was found, in the woods on a dead-end street on Wagner Lane. It's also just a few feet away from her apartment. Police say 29-year-old Uber driver Francisco Valadez drove Dixon to the scene Sunday morning. Valadez told police he initially attempted to have sex with Dixon in the back of his car, but he got angry with her. He later admitted to police he shot her in the head in his car, then hid Dixon's body behind the concrete barrier. He also said he tried to have sex with her again. Dixon was found naked with a sweatshirt pulled over her head and arms, lying on her stomach.
As investigators retraced the route, GPS data revealed a deviation from the expected path. Her phone stopped pinging shortly after. There were no witnesses, no security footage inside the vehicle. But there was one constant. The driver never reported her drop-off, and within 48 hours, his story began to change. Who was Chanti Dixon? Why was she targeted? What caused the ride to end in violence? This is a case that raises questions about public safety, rideshare accountability, and digital trail investigations. It's a timeline of a final journey, forensic gaps, a suspect who cracked, and a system that failed to protect a mother too. How did a trusted convenience become a fatal risk? Are you truly safe when you hand control over to a stranger with a car and an app? Let's go back to the beginning, minute by minute, to examine what happened inside that vehicle and why the person behind the wheel became the last one to see her alive. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover the truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Chanti Dixon was a 30-year-old woman residing in Indianapolis, Indiana. She was a single mother raising two children, Dasun, age 13, and Kiani, age 10. Her daily life was centered around providing for her children and ensuring their basic needs were met. She maintained a routine that reflected consistency, discipline, and responsibility. Public records show no history of criminal activity, domestic incidents, or interactions with law enforcement. She lived in a modest home in a working-class neighborhood and was known for maintaining a quiet, stable lifestyle. Her responsibilities revolved heavily around parenting and managing long work hours. Court records and school enrollment documents confirmed her role as the sole guardian of her children. Chanti worked extended shifts to support her family financially. Her employment required late-night and early morning hours, making her reliant on ride-hailing services like Uber to commute. She did not own a personal vehicle at the time of her death. According to her employer, she was punctual, dependable, and never involved in workplace disputes. Co-workers describe her as highly focused and task-oriented. Pay stubs and employment records reflected consistent attendance and documented over time, indicating a person committed to maximizing income opportunities for the benefit of her children. She maintained a clean employment history and passed all company background checks. There were no disciplinary reports or job-related grievances filed against her. Chanti did not have a large social circle. Her day-to-day interactions were primarily limited to work, her children's school activities, and church attendance. She was not active in nightlife settings or locations that posed elevated risks. Her public behavior was predictable, measured, and devoid of any known conflict. Phone records and text message logs obtained during the investigation showed that her communication was limited to family members, work contacts, and friends from her local church. There were no signs of harassment, threats, or unusual activity in the weeks leading up to her death. Chanti was a regular Uber user due to the nature of her work shifts. She followed routine travel patterns, typically commuting from work to home with minimal route deviation. In the neighborhood where she lived, Chanti was recognized by residents for her calm presence. Local residents who participated in police interviews describe her as peaceful, always on time, and focused on her kids. She attended Sunday services and was part of a church community that hosted parenting groups. Social media analysis revealed a digital profile that reflected a family-centered identity. Her posts mostly featured photos of her children, quotes about motherhood, and work-related updates. There were no indications of controversy, risky behavior, or online altercations. Investigators confirmed she had no known enemies or interpersonal conflicts. On the night of her death, Chanti Dixon was working a late-night shift that concluded around 3 a.m. Security camera footage from her place of employment showed her exiting the building alone. She was dressed in her usual work attire and appeared alert. There was no indication of distress or unusual behavior. At approximately 3:30 a.m., Chanti used the Uber app to request a ride home. The assigned driver was Francisco Valadez, a 29-year-old male with a registered driver profile. Valadez had no previous customer complaints or flagged incidents on his Uber account at the time. App data confirmed the ride was accepted and initiated without any reported errors. The pickup location was a standard work address that Chanti had used for previous rides. Her home was approximately 18 minutes away under normal traffic conditions. Valadez picked up Chanti without incident. The ride started at the expected location and moved along the correct route initially. GPS logs showed the vehicle proceeding west before taking a detour approximately 7 minutes into the trip. This deviation took the car away from the usual home route and toward a more isolated area on the outskirts of the city. The vehicle did not have internal security footage. No dashcam or in-cabin recording was installed. Uber policy at the time did not mandate drivers to have surveillance equipment in personal vehicles. Chanti's phone data showed a loss of signal shortly after the route detour. The last ping was at a location near a wooded area later identified as the site where her body will be discovered. There were no outgoing calls or text messages after the detour. Uber's internal ride tracking did not trigger any alerts. By morning, Chanti's family began expressing concern. She had not returned home or sent any messages, which was inconsistent with her behavior. Texts and calls to her phone went unanswered. Her sister attempted to contact Uber to request a welfare check or trace the ride history. However, company policy required law enforcement involvement to release detailed location data. At approximately 10 a.m. the following morning, the family filed a missing persons report with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. The report included her last known location and the fact that she was last seen entering an Uber. Officers began preliminary investigation steps, which included contacting Uber, reviewing her phone records, and interviewing family members. On the same day the missing persons report was filed, a local jogger discovered a deceased female in a wooded area near the intersection of Pleasant Run Parkway and Arlington Avenue. The location matched the final ping from Chanti's phone. Responding officers secured the scene. The body was partially concealed and showed signs of struggle. Initial examination indicated multiple gunshot wounds as the cause of death. Autopsy results would later confirm this finding. There were visible signs of physical assault. The victim's clothing was disheveled and personal items, such as her phone and purse, were missing from the scene. DNA samples were collected from the body and surrounding environment. Her identity was confirmed within hours using fingerprint data from her employer's HR records. Law enforcement notified her next of kin the same evening.
An Uber driver is arrested for the murder of 30-year-old Chanti Dixon, who was missing this weekend. The driver confessed to killing Dixon. ITV's Kat Sandoval pieces together what happened.
This is where Chanti Dixon's body was found, in the woods on a dead-end street on Wagner Lane. It's also just a few feet away from her apartment. Police say 29-year-old Uber driver Francisco Valadez drove Dixon to the scene Sunday morning. Valadez told police he initially attempted to have sex with Dixon in the back of his car, but he got angry with her. He later admitted to police he shot her in the head in his car, then hid Dixon's body behind the concrete barrier. He also said he tried to have sex with her again. Dixon was found naked with a sweatshirt pulled over her head and arms, lying on her stomach.
This is just disgusting all around, and it did not have to happen. This is a family that's been ripped apart. This woman is gone from the world unnecessarily.
As a woman, this hits differently for me. Women, girls, mothers, they have a right to exist freely in our community without fear of something heinous happening to them. They have a right to walk, bike, order a ride share without fearing something bad will happen to them.
Friends say this video of Dixon seen on the right shows how happy she was. They didn't want to talk on camera, but one of her neighbors did.
Because we all pretty much, we look out for each other here. And for that to happen is sad, and for it to be a ride share, that's really sad. You're not even safe getting a ride home.
Neighbors tell me they've seen Dixon moving into this apartment. They've seen her with her kids and her dog.
Horrific. Horrific. That didn't even, it doesn't even make sense. The girl, she just moved here. She ain't even been here a week.
Uber said they have banned Valadez from the app and will continue to assist Indianapolis police in this case. Police also stress that when taking a ride share, there are options to share your real-time location with people you know.
If something doesn't feel right to you during your ride, you can ask the person to pull over and you can get out.
Police want to hear from anyone who has ridden with Valadez in the past and had any issues with him. Reporting in Indianapolis, I'm Kat Sandoval, Wish TV, wishtv.com, or follow us on Facebook for updates.
And Dixon's close friend sent us this statement saying, "I am hurt and devastated of this happening. It hit so close to home and it hurts so bad. She was goofy, she was happy, always laughing, always caring. She was a mom before anything, hardworking and dedicated to her goals. She was such a big impression on all around her." Uber and Lyft report dozens of deadly assaults in the past couple of years. Check this out. Lyft reports a total of 16 in 2021, 2022 as well. Uber reports 36. Now, the number of sexual assaults much higher in that same period. Lyft reports 1,752. Uber reports 2,717. Both companies say they do have safety features in their app to protect both riders and drivers.
After Chanti Dixon was reported missing, investigators initiated contact with Uber to identify her last known location and the driver assigned to her trip. Uber's internal logs provided key metadata, including pickup time, driver ID, and route tracking. The ride was confirmed to have started around 3:30 a.m., originating from the restaurant where Dixon worked. GPS data showed a deviation from her typical route home. The assigned driver, Francisco Valadez, was contacted and brought in for questioning within 24 hours of Dixon's disappearance. During the initial interview, Valadez claimed that Dixon exited his vehicle approximately 10 minutes into the ride, stating she felt unsafe and decided to walk. He could not recall the exact location, but stated it was somewhere off the main road. When pressed for details such as intersections, street signs, or surrounding landmarks, his responses were vague and inconsistent. Detectives noted discrepancies between the driver's story and the GPS route logged by Uber's system. The vehicle's recorded path did not include any abrupt stops or changes in route that would indicate a passenger exit. The trip also did not end near a populated or lit area, but rather showed a final destination close to a wooded trail in a low-traffic industrial zone. In a follow-up interview after the discovery of the body, Valadez revised the statement. He denied ever letting Dixon out of the vehicle early, and instead claimed that she asked to be dropped off at an unfamiliar address. This shift in narrative, combined with metadata discrepancies, led investigators to pursue deeper evidence collection and forensic testing. Upon locating the vehicle used during the ride, a search warrant was executed. Forensics examined the interior of the car, focusing on the rear passenger area. Swab samples taken from the floor mat and seat were submitted for DNA analysis. Results confirmed the presence of Chanti Dixon's DNA, indicating she had remained in the vehicle for the duration of the ride and likely did not exit voluntarily. A single .40 caliber shell casing was recovered from the rear cargo area beneath the floor liner. It was matched through ballistic testing to a legally registered handgun owned by Valadez. This contradicted earlier statements that no weapon had been present during the ride. Additionally, surveillance footage from a nearby warehouse captured a vehicle consistent with Valadez's Uber profile driving into a wooded lot at 4:02 a.m., the same area where Dixon's body was discovered 36 hours later. No other vehicles were logged entering or leaving that road during the time frame. Timestamp data aligned with the conclusion that the car remained parked for approximately 7 minutes before exiting. The digital trail, including phone location data, Uber ride logs, DNA samples, shell casing analysis, and surveillance video, formed a chain of evidence pointing directly to Francisco Valadez. 2 days after the discovery of the body, police obtained an arrest warrant. Valadez was taken into custody at his residence without incident. He was charged with first-degree murder, attempted sexual assault, and obstruction of justice. During the arrest, officers also seized electronics, including a smartphone and a laptop, for digital forensic examination. The phone's deleted text messages and GPS history further reinforced the timeline. Metadata showed that after the crime, Valadez had clear browser history and deleted navigation records. Attempts were made to wipe the phone using factory reset settings, but partial recovery of files was possible through forensic tools. Valadez's first court appearance occurred within 72 hours of his arrest. At the arraignment hearing, he entered a not guilty plea. The court denied bond on the grounds of flight risk and the severity of the charges. Media coverage began to grow rapidly, particularly after family members and community leaders spoke publicly about safety failures within the rideshare system. During the preliminary hearings, the state submitted a motion to allow all digital and forensic evidence, including GPS logs and DNA results. The defense opposed the inclusion of certain cell phone data, arguing it had been obtained without a second warrant. The judge ruled in favor of the prosecution, citing the urgency and probable cause supported by the initial missing persons report and location of the body. In pretrial strategy, Valadez's defense team attempted to frame the shooting as accidental. The defense narrative alleged that Dixon became aggressive during the ride, resulting in a physical altercation in the backseat. The handgun, they argued, was lawfully present in the vehicle for self-defense and discharged unintentionally during the struggle. The prosecution challenged this narrative by presenting forensic trajectory analysis. Gunpowder residue tests confirmed that the shot had been fired at close range and at an angle inconsistent with defensive firing. There was also no evidence of Dixon's DNA on the weapon, indicating she never touched it. Uber ride data, body discovery timing, and witness statements about Valadez's prior behavior further weakened the defense. The prosecution introduced excerpts from a recorded police interrogation where Valadez admitted to panicking after the incident and dumping the body in a wooded location without calling for medical assistance. The confession, combined with hard forensic data, allowed the prosecution to discredit the accidental shooting claim. The trial lasted 9 days, with 6 prosecution witnesses and 3 for the defense. After 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, attempted sexual assault, and obstruction of justice. During sentencing, the judge cited the planned deception and cover-up efforts as aggravating factors. Valadez was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Based on a forensic timeline, do you think the crime was premeditated? Should all rideshare vehicles be required to have in-car surveillance? How reliable do you think driver background checks are in preventing these incidents? If Valadez had not changed his story, would the outcome have been different? The first major question raised following Chanti Dixon's murder was whether the rideshare company, Uber, properly vetted her driver, Francisco Valadez. Background checks for Uber drivers typically include a review of criminal history, driving records, and verification of identity. However, critics have pointed out that these checks are often limited in scope, relying on databases that may not be updated in real time, and sometimes failing to detect red flags if a person hasn't yet been convicted of a crime. Valadez had no known criminal convictions at the time of his onboarding. However, according to later reports, there were allegations of inappropriate behavior from prior passengers that were either not reported directly to Uber or not followed up on thoroughly. This highlights a key weakness in the system. Rideshare companies often depend on users to report misconduct, and even then, consequences vary based on severity and documentation of the complaint. Uber's official statement acknowledged the incident and confirmed Valadez had been permanently removed from their platform. However, they did not clarify what specific data was reviewed when Valadez was initially approved. This raises critical concerns over the consistency and effectiveness of their background screening process. Should rideshare platforms implement live background checks that update automatically with law enforcement databases? When Chanti Dixon's family noticed she had not returned home or responded to messages after a 3:30 a.m. Uber ride, they immediately attempted to contact Uber. According to family statements, the company's customer support process did not provide direct or urgent access to real-time information. Instead, they were directed through standard automated support channels and given limited information. Uber's policy regarding missing persons involves cooperation with law enforcement upon official requests, but the family experienced delays before the investigation gained traction. This procedural gap between concerned loved ones and rideshare corporations may contribute to critical time lost during the initial hours of disappearance. In Chanti's case, her body was discovered by a jogger nearly 24 hours later. By then, the crime had already occurred and evidence had begun to degrade. Had more proactive tracking tools or direct communication been available sooner, the timeline of recovery and investigation might have changed. Should Uber create an emergency line that bypasses automated systems for situations involving safety concerns? Another major gap was the absence of a surveillance camera inside Valadez's vehicle. Unlike some professional taxi services, rideshare vehicles are not required by Uber to have internal recording devices. While some drivers voluntarily install dash cams, there is no consistent enforcement or requirement to record interactions between driver and passenger. In this case, the lack of a camera meant that there was no visual record of what occurred inside the car. Prosecutors had to rely on digital tracking data, the suspect's eventual confession, and physical evidence to reconstruct the event. A camera may not have prevented the crime, but it would have likely provided immediate confirmation of assault, route deviation, and possibly even motive. In the aftermath, legal experts and public safety advocates began discussing the need for policy reform to mandate vehicle surveillance for rideshare operators, particularly for those working overnight hours. Should it be mandatory for all rideshare vehicles to have internal cameras recording every ride? The circumstances of Dixon's murder occurred during the early morning hours, a time when many passengers are vulnerable due to low visibility, decreased police presence, and fewer bystanders. This raises larger policy questions about whether there should be stricter protocols for late-night rides. Possible regulatory options include mandatory check-ins by drivers via app during night shifts, flagging long or deviated routes for immediate review, requirement of dual verification for drop-offs in remote areas. Currently, there is no federal mandate regulating how rideshare companies operate during high-risk hours. Most safety protocols are left to corporate discretion. Some cities have considered curfews or stricter checks, but enforcement is inconsistent. Should government agencies step in to regulate how companies like Uber operate after midnight? Chanti Dixon's case received national attention due to the brutality of the crime and the fact that it involved a commonly used app. However, many similar incidents go unreported or unresolved. According to a report released by Uber in 2019, there were over 3,000 reports of sexual assaults in the U.S. within just 1 year. Most of these involved female passengers and occurred during late-night hours. The report also stated that 92% of victims never pursue legal action or media attention. This statistic raises important concerns about how many victims are suffering in silence, unaware how to report, or feeling that their cases will not be taken seriously. If 92% of victims never report rideshare crimes, how many dangerous drivers are still on the road? Chanti Dixon left behind 2 children, Dasun 13 and Kiani 10. The children are now under the care of relatives, and the long-term impact of losing a mother in such a violent manner is still unfolding. The children's guardian publicly stated that the kids were aware of what happened but are receiving counseling and support. A GoFundMe campaign was launched shortly after the discovery of Chanti's body. The campaign aimed to raise funds for funeral expenses and to help cover the basic needs of the children. Within weeks, the community had raised over $17,000. The campaign was eventually closed, but its success reflected the level of public support and shock over the incident. Local residents organized a candlelight vigil at the site where Dixon's body was found. Dozens of people gathered to honor her memory, with community leaders calling for reform in rideshare safety protocols. The case generated national media coverage and reignited debate over rideshare safety, especially for women.
A vigil was held today for Chanti Dixon, the woman who was found dead after getting in an Uber Sunday morning. Her driver later admitted to killing her. The community came out for a candlelight vigil and balloon release. Chanti's mother describes what the moment meant to her.
I was just glad to see that she could physically see the love one more time. You know, that's what I was glad to see, because I know she's here and she's watching. So she got to see us give her love one more time.
Risa says her family is doing as well as they can under the circumstances and that Chanti's children are still processing her death.
News outlets highlighted similar cases in which women were harmed during rideshare trips, prompting consumers to demand increased transparency and stronger safety features. A petition titled Chanti's Law was created, advocating for the mandatory installation of internal surveillance cameras in all Uber and Lyft vehicles. The proposal also suggested automated emergency alerts if a ride significantly deviates from an original route without confirmation from a passenger. As of the latest update, the petition had received thousands of signatures and was under review by local government officials in Indiana. Lawmakers are considering holding hearings to assess what regulations can be introduced at the state level. Should Chanti's Law become a national requirement? Would you sign a petition demanding better protection for passengers? If you're a regular rideshare user, what changes would make you feel safer? Would you feel safe getting into a car at 3:30 a.m. with a stranger? How much do you know about your Uber driver's background? Should rideshare companies install cameras in all cars? Is justice enough for a mother whose kids now grow up without her? Lessons to learn from the murder of Chanti Dixon. Always verify your ride and driver. Never enter a vehicle without checking the license plate, driver's photo, and name on the app. Know your rideshare app's safety features. Familiarize yourself with emergency features like GPS sharing, panic buttons, and trip tracking. Use them when needed. Surveillance in rideshare vehicles should be standard. Mandatory in-car cameras can deter crimes and help with evidence during investigations. High-risk time frames require extra precaution. Late night and early morning rides carry higher risks. Always share your trip details with someone you trust. Companies must be held accountable for vetting. Background checks alone are not enough. Rideshare companies must implement deeper behavioral and psychological screening. Legal justice does not equal prevention. Punishing the offender doesn't undo the damage. Preventive safety policies must be strengthened. The impact of one decision affects many. A single unsafe ride can permanently affect entire families. Consider the long-term consequences of everyday actions. Digital trails are crucial for investigations. Location tracking, phone data, and ride logs were key to solving this case. Keep your device location on during rides. No system is 100% safe. Even trusted platforms have limitations. Stay cautious, even when using well-known services. Public demand can spark policy change. Community advocacy can push companies and lawmakers to act. Speak up for safety reforms that can save lives. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.